The first night after leaving my son's house, I slept in my truck. Not because I had nowhere else to go. Because I wasn't ready to decide where home was anymore. I parked beside a quiet lake about 40 miles outside the city. It was a place I'd gone fishing for years. Somehow, it felt safer than any house. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Ethan's voice. "Grandpa, when are you coming back?" I had no answer then. I still didn't. The next morning, I woke before sunrise. The lake was completely still. Mist floated across the water. For the first time in weeks. No one was asking me to leave. No one was watching me. No one needed anything from me. I simply sat there with a cup of coffee, listening to silence. Around 8 o'clock, my phone rang. The screen showed a familiar name. Daniel Harper. Most people would have answered immediately. I let it ring twice. Then 3 times. Finally, I picked up. "George." His voice sounded relieved. "I've been trying to reach you. I've been busy." There was a brief silence. Then he asked, "Are you still coming to the meeting this afternoon?" I looked out across the lake. "Yes. I'll be there." Daniel wasn't family. He wasn't a neighbor. He wasn't a friend from church. He had been my attorney for almost 20 years. He never asked unnecessary questions. And I never volunteered unnecessary answers. That was one of the reasons I trusted him. By noon, I drove into the city. Not to see Michael. Not to see Melissa. I drove to the tallest office building downtown. One I hadn't visited in nearly 3 years. The receptionist smiled the moment she saw me. "Good afternoon, Mr. Walker. It's nice to see you again." I smiled back. "It's been a while." She stood immediately. "I'll let Mr. Harper know you've arrived." As I walked through the lobby, a young employee carrying a stack of files accidentally bumped into me. "I'm so sorry, sir." "No harm done." He looked at me for a second. Then asked quietly, "Are you Mr. George Walker?" I nodded. His eyes widened. "I've heard a lot about you." I smiled politely. "I'm afraid most of it probably isn't true." He laughed. "Oh. I think it is." Daniel greeted me at the office door with a handshake. "You look tired." "I've had a difficult week." I heard. I looked at him. "You heard?" He nodded. "The neighborhood talks." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he opened a thick leather folder. "I think it's time." I already knew what he meant. I had been avoiding this conversation for years. Maybe longer. He slid several documents across the table. Property records. Investment reports. Trust agreements. Letters. Some signed. Some waiting for my signature. Daniel looked directly at me. "George. Are you absolutely certain?" I took a long breath. Then slowly nodded. "I've never been more certain." He handed me a pen. For the next 20 minutes. I signed paper after paper. Without hesitation. When we finished, Daniel carefully closed the folder. "It's done." I leaned back in the chair. For some reason. Instead of relief, I felt sadness. Because no father imagines one day sitting in a lawyer's office making decisions like these. Daniel broke the silence. "I know this wasn't easy." No. I replied quietly. It wasn't. He hesitated. Then asked the question no one else had dared ask. If Michael called today, would you answer? I looked out through the office window. The city stretched for miles below us. People rushing to work. Traffic moving endlessly. Everyone carrying burdens invisible to everyone else. Finally, I answered. Yes. Daniel looked surprised. But that doesn't mean everything would go back to the way it was. He nodded. As if he had expected exactly that answer. As I stood to leave, he stopped me. Oh. One more thing. The quarterly report came in this morning. He smiled. Your investments performed better than expected. I smiled politely. It was never about the money. Daniel answered without missing a beat. I know. But sooner or later, they're going to find out. I looked at him for a long moment. Then quietly replied. That's the part I'm afraid of.